Good evening and welcome to the Unit 9 review of the division of polynomials. In this review, we are going to split this up into two topics, where I'm first going to divide by a monomial and then I'm going to divide by a binomial. When I start off with dividing by a monomial, what I am going to do is I want to split these two terms up, where I'm going to say 40x squared divided by 8x minus 8x divided by 8x. When we divide by a monomial, I see that I have 40 divided by 8. It's just my constants. I'm going to approach it as I normally would. 40 divided by 8 is 5. Now, I have x squared divided by x. I'm going to put an exponent of 1 here to explain this. With the law of exponents, which we will get into in another video, when I divide, I subtract. So I'm going to see 2 minus 1, which would give me 1. So I'm going to have 5x to the first minus 8 divided by 8 is 1, x divided by x. Again, if we put those exponents as 1 up there, 1 minus 1 is 0. So I'm going to get x to the 0 power. Anything raised to the 0 power is automatically 1. So now I'm going to have 5x minus 1. And that would be my final answer. An easy way for you to check if you did it correctly is if you take your divisor, your 8x, and you multiply it by your answer, 5x minus 1. You should get the numerator, or your dividend. So when I distribute, 8x times 5x will give me 40x squared. 8x times a negative 1 is negative 8x, which I see does match my original answer. Looking at another example, now I have more exponents. In order for us to divide this, I am going to split it up once again. Negative 25, x to the fourth, y to the third, plus 30x squared, y to the fifth, where both of these terms are going to be divided by negative 5x squared, y, and again, negative 5x squared, y. If you notice, when I set this up, my variables match up, meaning I have my x term and my x term lined up so I can see the easy division. So starting out, negative 25 divided by negative 25 will give me a positive 5. X to the fourth divided by x squared. Again, here we are subtracting our exponents. 4 minus 2 will give me x squared. I'm going to put my imaginary 1 here. Y to the third divided by y to the first is y squared. Plus 30 divided by negative 5 gives me negative 6. X squared divided by x squared is x to the 0. And y to the fifth minus y to the first is y to the fourth. When we look at this, we're looking to see if we can simplify any terms. I know anything raised to the 0 power is 1. So now I have 5x squared, y squared, plus a negative 6, y to the fourth. That is one way we can write our answer. Another way that we can write it is 5x squared, y squared, minus 6y to the fourth. I cannot do anything else with this question because I do not have like terms. Now, when I go into this example, I have 3 terms I need to split up. Negative 24x to the seventh, plus 9x to the third, minus 15x. And we're dividing each term divided by 3x to the fifth. So start off, negative 24 divided by 3 is a negative 8. Y to the x to the seventh divided by x to the fifth will give me x squared. Plus 9 divided by 3 is 3. X to the third divided by x to the fifth will give me x to the negative second. Minus 15 divided by 3 is 5. X to the first divided by x to the fifth will give me x to the negative fourth. And as we go through, and as you remember through the laws of exponents, I am not allowed to have negative exponents. So what I need to do is I need to make them positive. And the way for us to do that is if I have a negative exponent, I write it as 1 over x to the positive exponent. So for here, my negative 8x squared stays, plus the 3 is not part of the x. So therefore, that 3 stays in my numerator, divided by x squared. minus. Same concept holds true here. My 5 is not part of my x to the negative fourth, so I'm going to have 5x to the fourth, and here would be my final answer. Next, we're going to talk about dividing by a binomial. When we divide by a binomial, there are 4 steps that we are going to remember. First, we're going to divide. Second, we're going to multiply. Then we're going to subtract. And we're finally going to bring it back around. We're going to start ourselves over again. So in my example, x minus 7 will divide x squared minus 10x plus 21. The way I start off with this is the following. I am only looking at one term in my divisor, which is just my x. That is what is going to be divided by. So to start off, x squared divided by x, or how many times can x go into x squared? We're going to say x times. I multiply this x to the binomial x minus 7. So I'm going to get x squared minus 7x. The next step is to subtract. When we subtract, I highly suggest that you put your term in parentheses. So I get x squared minus x squared. That'll cancel itself out. Negative 10x minus a negative 7x. This is why I'm stressing to put that term in parentheses, because this becomes a positive. I now have negative 10x plus 7x to get a negative 3x plus 21. And then we bring down the 21. Now I look at it again. How many times can x go into negative 3x? Negative 3 times. I multiply negative 3 to the x minus 7, negative 3x plus 21. I'm going to subtract it, again, put it in parentheses. And as you notice, my 2 lines at the end here are the exact same, which means my remainder will be 0. So my answer to this binomial is x minus 3. Now I have a leading coefficient greater than 1. I have 2n squared plus 5n minus 12 divided by 2n minus 3. We are using the same steps, division, multiplication, subtraction, and then we're going to bring it back around. So 2n minus 3, my division of 2n squared plus 5n minus 12. So to start out, how many again, I'm only looking at one term, my 2n. How many times can 2n go into 2n squared? N times. N times 2n will give me 2n squared. N times negative 3 is a negative 3n. I'm going to put this in parentheses and subtract. 2n squared minus 2n squared cancels. And again, I have double negatives, so 5n plus a positive 3n gives me 8n minus 12. How many times can 2n go into 8n? A positive 4 times. 4 times 2n is 8n. And 4 times a negative 3 will give me negative 12. I'm going to subtract my 2 terms, and again, I get a remainder of 0. So my answer to this is n plus 4. This is written a different way. It's the same exact concept. I'm going to go about p minus 2 being divided of 4p squared minus 3p minus 10. Starting off, I'm only concerned about this p term. P goes into 4p squared 4p times. 4p times p is 4p squared. 4p times a negative 2 is a negative 8p. I'm going to place my term in parentheses, subtract, cancel out. Negative 3p minus a negative 8p. Double negatives, negative 3 plus 8 is going to give me a 5p minus 10. Now I look at how many times can p go into 5p? A positive 5 times. 5 times p is 5p. 5 times a negative 2 is a negative 10. Put my term in parentheses, subtract, they cancel, I get a remainder of 0. My final answer will be 4p plus 5. And that is all we have. Again, when you look to divide by a monomial, split your terms individually. When you divide by a binomial, make sure you start canceling and put that bottom term in parentheses. Thank you. Thank you.